Hi, you're watching The Office Hours, the Dartmouth edition, and I am Clark Moore. I'm a 13 here at Dartmouth, which means I'm a sophomore. I am majoring in history modified with art history with a potential minor in Spanish or international studies. And today I have with me Professor Kalish, who is from the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric. Hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing very well. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I'm actually also a Dartmouth alum. I graduated in 1991. So I'm old. And I've been around this campus for quite some time. Like many people, I came up to Dartmouth as a student and couldn't quite leave.
Yeah.
So, but I teach first year writing, and I'm an attorney in Vermont and do some work with Vermont ACLU. So.
Very nice, very nice. So you mentioned that you teach some first year writing. What exactly do you teach?
Yes. Dartmouth has several first year writing classes, and I teach Writing 5, which is run in the fall term and in the winter term. Different faculty members decide to teach their sections about different topics, and mine, because I'm a lawyer, my section is about the Supreme Court.
Oh, interesting. What kind of stuff do you guys discuss?
We discuss all sorts of controversial issues. It's actually quite a lot of fun. We talk about the court, what it's meant to be doing as the third branch of government. We start off reading the Constitution, which is a very hot topic now, apparently, in political races across the country. Mm-hmm. And then students all split up into groups, and they work on cases that are currently pending before the Supreme Court.
Wow.
So
that's very
fun.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
And this class is taught through the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric?
Yes.
What exactly is the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric?
The Institute for Writing and Rhetoric is, it hosts actually all of the first year writing classes. It also offers upper level classes in both speech and in writing. And I would encourage any of you to go to the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric's homepage via the Dartmouth website, and all of your questions can be answered there.
Well, thank you. As a matter of fact, Professor Kalish mentioned a link to the website. We're going to put a link in the chat room. I actually have my computer right here, and I'm ready and willing to take any questions that you guys have for myself as a Dartmouth student, or for Professor Kalish as a Dartmouth professor and a Dartmouth alum. So if you want to know about life after Dartmouth, or just not being able to get away, we can definitely answer some of those questions for you too. So feel free to ask any questions, and there's a link that was just put up to the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric if you have any questions about that. So that sounds so interesting. Supreme Court. Very controversial. Do you guys, do you delve into topics with your students and have them discuss, or is it more lecture-based?
Oh, no. It's very much a discussion class. And I think that it's a small class. These classes are capped at 18 students, and so it allows us to have a lot of dynamic conversations with the students and allow the students a lot of personal attention, not only from us, but with each other. Mm-hmm. And which is part of the reason why why it's so much fun to talk about the Supreme Court issues, because these are issues that are touching everybody's lives not only in a daily way, but also in ways that haven't yet been determined. All of these issues are still sort of being debated and being figured out, and it's not clear where things will go. So.
Yeah. Well, very interesting. I wish I had had a chance to take that Writing 5 class. Mine was Philosophy of Education with Professor Nancy Crumbine, which was very interesting. We got to deal with Plato and Aristotle and talking about education and love and different things. And it gave me a really nice introduction to Dartmouth College. I feel like just like teaching me how to write in a different way and to be in a discussion-based class. It stretched me in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Did you take your course in the fall?
I took mine in the fall, and then I took my first year seminar in the winter. And that actually brings up a good question. Do all students have to take a Writing 5 class?
No, the majority of students have to take a Writing 5 class, but not all. And because because so many students need to take a Writing 5 class, sometimes they'll be they'll take it in the fall, or if not in the fall,
Okay.
they'll take it in the winter term. In the winter term, but after a Writing 5 class, all students need to take a first-year seminar. So that's why there are no 5s in the spring, so that there can be a seminar.
A seminar,
that
yeah.
follows.
I never even thought about that.
Yes, it's all logistical.
Yeah, logistics. Well, that's so great. So as far as the first year seminar goes, is that also under the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric?
Again, I would suggest that people go to the website and check things out. The actual seminars are offered through the department, but through the individual departments, because one of the goals of the seminar is to have students participating in all sorts of different departments across campus. But there is certainly coordination that happens by the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric.
Okay, very nice. One of the things that I really liked about the first year seminar was that even though it's a required class that you have to take a first year seminar, which can seem kind of intimidating as an incoming freshman, I really like that it's really not required in the sense that you have to take this one curriculum that the administration determines. You can take a first year seminar in a number of different departments. For instance, I know my friend took hers in the religion department and decided that she wanted to be a religion major, while I decided to take mine in the theater department. So while she was writing about philosophy of religion, I was writing plays for social change, because there was theater for social change was my seminar.
Well, that's one of the things that I enjoy about my Writing 5 classes. I've had the liberty to be able to teach about a subject that I am very passionate about, and it's different. Not every Writing 5 section is different, and we have that kind of flexibility to do that, which is great.
That is so great. So how did you end up at the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric? You said that you graduated from Dartmouth and that you're involved with law in the Upper Valley. How did you end up there?
I wound up there. It actually started when I was an undergraduate at Dartmouth. Way back then, there was no Institute for Writing and Rhetoric. But I was an English major as an undergraduate, and there was what we called then the Composition Center, which has now transformed with modern technology into RWIT, which is the Student Center for Research, Writing, and Information Technology. But when I was a student, there was the Composition Center, and I became a writing tutor through that. And that was my on-campus job. I sort of fell into it a little bit by happenstance, but found that I loved it, and I loved working with students, and I loved particularly working with students about their writing. Then I left Dartmouth, went to graduate school in English, and came back and started teaching, then developed, I wouldn't even say it was an interest in the law. It was more of an interest in the environment. So I thought I was going to be leaving teaching and going off to practice environmental law, but finished my degree, found that I was much more interested in constitutional law.
Really?
Which I guess, given the academic background, should not have been terribly surprising. But so I spent some time teaching at the law school, but then found that I really missed working with the Dartmouth students. So I came back to Dartmouth, and by that point there was the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric, and so I started teaching my class.
Yeah.
But it's you guys I missed. You're so much fun.
Well, it's so hard to get away.
It is really very hard to get away. It's a place that keeps calling you back.
Yeah, I'm only a sophomore. I'm only a sophomore, and I can already feel it. I go away. I went home for 3 weeks after my language study abroad program this summer, and I was just dying to get back here. And it's crazy because I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, which is hot, and you know it's cold in New Hampshire, comparable to Atlanta at least.
Yes.
And I thought I'd never want to come back. I thought that the winters would scare me away, but they haven't.
They haven't. You're back. Are you staying on for winter term?
Well, I actually just found out today that I have an internship for winter, which is very nice. I thought I was going to possibly be here for the winter, but fortunately I'm going to not have to do my 6th on term in a row. So I get a little break. I'm going to miss it, though. But fortunately, New York is only a couple hours away. I can just drive up any weekend.
Yes.
And I plan to, definitely, for Winter Carnival, one of the big weekends in winter. I definitely plan on coming up.
I don't know if that made sense. Did you want to explain the D plan and why you're actually able to?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the D plan is a very specific plan to Dartmouth where we operate on a quarter system. We have a fall, winter, spring, and summer, and you can get more information on the website, but basically we are required to be on campus fall, winter, spring of your freshman and sophomore year, and the summer, freshman and senior year, and the summer of your sophomore year. And the other terms you can take off. You can do internships, or I did my summer this summer. I did an on-term technically, but I was studying abroad in Russia for my language study abroad program. Yeah, through the Russian department.
That's fantastic.
Which is why this is technically my 5th on-term in a row. So I'm taking my winter term off, where I would have taken my summer vacations, and I'm going to be doing an internship. So we'll see if that field work will, enrich my history major.
What's your internship?
It's an internship in fashion. It's kind of fashion business, and I'm hoping to find a connection between history of architecture, which is kind of what I'm focusing on here, and history of design. So we'll see if that can supplement my research that I'm doing here independently.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, well, I hope so. It's going to be in New York, which is a little different from Hanover. It's a little change.
A little bit.
Yeah. But I'm really excited about it.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit earlier RWIT.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about student services as far as writing goes?
Well, again, as things have changed a bit, although I think the fundamental philosophy is the same. And again, you should go to the RWIT website as well for more specific information about RWIT. But the philosophy, and I'll talk about it from when I was a student, is that students are working on students who are working on papers, it's always good to get a second set of eyes taking a look, and that we train our student tutors to be able to read and to respond to students in a very facilitative, constructive way, always sort of keeping that level of the writer's authority with the student who's writing, but as a way of getting a more objective third-party set of questions to help facilitate that process. And part of the philosophy, too, is about students interacting with students, where the hope is maybe some of those boundaries that come into place when there's an authority relationship have maybe broken down, and so that the students feel possibly, we hope, more comfortable engaging in a real give and take dialogue about what they're trying to do and how they've chosen to do it. And it can be an extremely, from a tutoring end of things, it can be an extremely rewarding experience, and a lot of people who are drawn to that kind of work wind up loving it and wanting to go on to teach.
Yeah, okay.
But I've also, when I was a student too, I also took my papers to the Composition Center because,
really?
Yeah, once you're on it from the other end, you realize, oh my gosh, I would be foolish not to get this kind of feedback from somebody else. So,
well, that's interesting. Can you tell me? I know from my perspective, as a student who often procrastinates, I always put my papers off to the last minute, and I do research throughout the term, but I always get to that point where it's the night before, and I just say to myself, I wish I had more time. And I did have more time, I just could have budgeted it better. And I know that one thing that helped me with budgeting my time as an incoming freshman, getting used to Dartmouth and a new environment, was having a writing assistant who was on me about turning in my drafts or making sure, and it was a peer evaluation, so it wasn't as nerve-wracking as saying a professor who is saying get your paper in.
Right.
But it helped me with a timetable. Do you think that interaction, that student interaction, facilitates more use of office hours, or for you as a professor, or do you think that inhibits students from? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. honestly had never really thought about that. I frequently have students coming in, and I know that perhaps my students get tired of it, but I require a lot of conference time with me. So I have students kind of coming into my office all the time anyway. I'm not sure if that would be different depending upon what my use of peer tutoring would be.
Okay.
But I do think that that's one of the potential benefits of it, is that if you get accustomed to talking in a constructive dialogue with somebody else who maybe isn't as intimidating as at first, that it might actually help facilitate your relationship with the professors. The professors here, I found, are extremely welcoming of students coming to office hours. But sometimes some students feel more comfortable doing so than others. But it can be, it's not an intimidating thing at all.
Now, you said you require some office time with your students?
Yes, I do.
That actually leads right into the question that James B. Lee asked in the chat. He asked, are professors accessible? I heard most schools have TAs in the classroom.
No. I mean, sorry. No, students are not professors are not accessible. No, I mean, no as in most classes here will not have TAs.
Okay.
Some will have writing assistants, and you can actually, because you had a writing assistant in your class, you can explain that too. But faculty members here are extremely accessible, and it's one of the sort of hallmark traits of Dartmouth that everybody likes to talk about, is that you will have, and that's one of the wonderful things too about Writing 5, is that it is capped at 18 students. And so I get to know my students really pretty well, and some of them have remained in contact all throughout the rest of their years at Dartmouth. And I meet up with them for coffee or lunches, or it's part of the reason I like teaching so much at Dartmouth. Because it really puts a high priority on that relationship.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, that's great. Yeah, as to what you were saying about writing assistants, my class for both my Writing 5 and my first year seminar had writing assistants, and they were definitely not what I thought. When my professor explained that we were going to be having writing assistants, I thought that meant a TA who was going to be there in the class and taking my papers, grading my papers, and then handing them back to me without my professor even really seeing any of my work or having any interaction with my professor. But it was quite the opposite, actually. The from my experience, the writing assistants facilitated conversations with the professor, because a lot of times for me personally, I don't necessarily have a good way. I can't really articulate what I'm thinking about what I want to write, and so that makes it difficult to go to office hours, because I feel nervous. I don't want to waste the professor's time when I don't even really know what I'm asking about. But having this writing assistant, who is another student, who thinks like a student, who operates on the same schedule as a student, which is really important, because I know I met my writing assistant 11:30 at night in the student center, which was just as easily accessible as a professor's office hours.
I'm not going to meet with you at 11:30 at night.
And that's nice to have that person who is there ready, to do something like that. But my writing assistants really helped me really decide or come up with ideas about what I wanted to ask my professor, and my professor was able to help solidify those ideas in my paper with me. So that was my experience with a writing assistant.
And that was actually from when I was a writing assistant and was a tutor. That could be some of the most fun work to do with a student, was when the student would come in and just sit down and say, we have this assignment, I still don't even know what I'm doing yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a lot of fun to help brainstorm and come up with ideas, and okay, well, that's a really interesting observation. What might that look like as an argument? Yeah,
exactly. And to potentially hear someone who feels differently than you do, so you can find that tension and you can represent that in your paper.
Right.
So that's what I really got out of my writing 5, or my writing assistants for my Writing 5 in my first year seminar.
Excellent RWIT testimonial.
Yeah, and I don't even work for RWIT. You also mentioned that we were talking about accessibility for professors. What are some of the things that you do outside of the classroom to, not necessarily in an academic setting, but to interact with students?
Yes. again, as I said, Dartmouth really prides itself on its accessibility of the faculty, and there are lots of programs in place where they encourage students to interact with faculty members outside of the classroom. And I was going to reference, what is it, SIPS, SIPS, but
SIPS?
you know what the acronym means. I don't know what the acronym
Oh, I
means.
forgot. Student Initiated Programming
Something.
SIPS.
SIPS. Right. So what that is essentially is that I think it's run through the dorms, and so dorm clusters might sponsor particular events, and they'll, if you bring in a faculty member to participate, they'll give you funding for either for dinner or for an event or something. And so I've gone to faculty trivia night at a dorm cluster, which was really fun. I have gone to Chris, who's sitting behind the scenes here. I went to his dorm to have dinner with his undergraduate advisor group, and then go to Dartmouth Idol, which is a version of American Idol, but with Dartmouth students, and it was really, really fun. I am frequently, it seems more and more so, I'm frequently meeting students for coffee after they've been in classes and just want to catch up. And I'm having a whole group of students right now who are seniors and applying for law school, and I feel like I've had a lot of coffees about law school.
Yeah.
Lately, but
well, that's good to know. In 2 years, who I should talk to.
That's right.
Can I pencil you in now?
Okay.
Probably very busy.
No, I actually really very much enjoy all of these interactions. I sort of look forward to them, and it's always fun. You guys do really cool things. It's like they're all really cool. And it's fun to just catch up with students after they've been off on internships or to foreign countries, and to hear about what's going on with them. And
absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah, well, that's so great. That's so great that you're so accessible and you're always willing to meet with students and talk about things like that.
Yeah, the students are the best part of being here.
Yeah.
So
I think that we've spoken a lot to Dartmouth as a community and Dartmouth as a family, which is something that I think is really unique to this campus.
Yes.
People really can't get away when they leave. They really feel this tie and this connection.
Yeah.
And I think that also comes to fruition in our alumni support.
Yes.
We definitely have a lot of alumni support always here, and always an active figure in decision making and things like that.
Yes.
And just a personal question. I'm a tour guide.
Yes.
And we talk about Blitz Mail, which is our email server, which was a point of pride for us as Dartmouth students. It was founded here before internet existed.
Yes.
And it still exists now. It is still our campus email server, and blitz is a noun and a verb. You can blitz someone or receive a blitz. And one thing that's really interesting is that Dartmouth professors are also on Blitz. So it's not just this instant messaging service for student to student or like organizations figuring out about campus life, but it's also a way to contact professors if you can't get to office hours or if you can't stay after class. And I know one story that I always tell on my tours is that I was up really late one night, and I had to write my paper at that moment. I just had this burst of energy, but I couldn't get past this one idea. And so I remember I blitzed my professor. It was 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, she's never going to respond. Like, I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow. I might as well just go ahead and move on to the next thing. 5 minutes later, she had responded with paragraphs of arguments and ways I could go, and then at the end she said, come into office hours tomorrow, I would love to discuss this with you further. And I know from a student perspective, being able to blitz a professor is very nice to have that interaction readily accessible. But I was just wondering, I've never asked a professor how you guys feel about receiving blitzes at 11, or like frantic emails from students who are maybe over exaggerating. What are your feelings about that?
I actually have mixed feelings about it. It's funny because I am that professor who will respond to you at 11:30 at night if I'm awake. But that's the thing is I'm not always awake, and so that's the origin of my mixed feelings about it. Is because if I'm like the students, we're on Blitzmail all the time. It's just constantly open in the background, and it sends you this notification that interrupts everything you're doing. But yet it can't be ignored.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're on there all the time too, and so I'll just respond as I get these emails. But my mixed feelings about it occur because if I've responded to you once at 1 a.m., that doesn't necessarily mean that I will ever be up at 1 a.m. ever again, and so I don't want you to rely on that. But yeah, I actually like it. It's a very efficient way to communicate with students too. So.
Yeah, well, good.
Yeah.
It's good to know, so I can continue to blitzing my professors
keep blitzing.
late at night.
Keep blitzing.
There's an interesting question from the chat from Janice. She asks, what's the best and worst thing as a professor at Dartmouth? I always feel like it's harder to answer what's worse about the worst thing about Dartmouth.
I was thinking. Well, I would say the best thing is without question the students. Really, legitimately, you guys are amazing, and you're sort of globally speaking, you're so interesting and so smart and really engaged and energetic and actively involved with so many different things. It's just exciting to be working with you. The worst thing probably, and I say this again with such mixed feelings because I really liked it as a student, and I still kind of like it as a faculty member, but is that 10-week term. The 10-week term, because Dartmouth is on quarters, we have a fall, winter, spring, and summer term, and each term is about 10 weeks. Winter term even just a hair bit less than that. And so there's a bit of when I'm trying to interact with friends who are not in this world, it's hard for them to understand the nature of the pace that's going on. It's a sprint. It's not a marathon. And so everything is happening with a certain speed, which sometimes can be fun and energizing and sometimes can just leave you feeling winded. So I think that would probably be the worst.
I would definitely say that it can be taxing. There are definitely days when it's a little bit of a harder day, and it's, But one thing that I definitely like about the 10-week term is that in my particular high school I had, we had 5 classes a day, 6 classes a day. The 6th was an elective. And so 5 academic classes a day, every single day, from the beginning of the term, from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. We had year-long courses, and we had 2 month-long breaks in between. But by the end of the year, it was just, there's only so much that you can talk about American political thought without wanting to die or like wanting a change. And one thing that I really like about Dartmouth is that while it's quick, while you're moving fast, and if you get behind on one night's reading, you really have to work to catch back up. I really like that by the time, just at that moment when you're starting to get sick of that public policy class. You can't talk about controversial Supreme Court issue anymore. As soon as that happens, you have your final and you're done. And you're moving on to something completely new and in a completely different field or a completely different department because of the liberal arts curriculum. Right. So that was
my experience with it too as a student. I actually loved it as a student. I liked, for the exact same reasons that you're saying. I also felt like, and I think that it still happens, Dartmouth students are really good at processing massive amounts of information quickly as a result of these 10-week terms, which is a very valuable skill in the workplace, an extremely valuable skill. And a Dartmouth student can see a huge stack of information at a certain point, like, I can get through that tonight as a result of that. And so I did really enjoy that as an undergraduate. It's just, I think as I get older, my stamina is waning.
Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to ask you a very quick question. We've been talking a lot about your experience here at Dartmouth. What are some of the things that have changed since you were here, maybe for the better, or just like how you've seen the college grow in this short period of time in the college's history?
college has changed, and it's remained the same in many, many ways, in that sort of Dartmouth loyalty and love and that sense of community. There are a lot of things that have changed, and I think changed for the better. There's, first of all, our physical footprint is very different from what it was when I was here as a student. I think also there's something about the student body that's shifted. A friend of mine from college with whom I reconnected on Facebook, clearly,
Very nice.
yes, who now lives in Kenya.
Okay.
But he got back in touch and said, "Oh, I see you're at Dartmouth. You know, we were obviously way cooler than the students now, weren't we?" And I said, "Actually, no, not even remotely. They're so much cooler than we were." And it's kind of true. You guys you're more worldly. You've come to Dartmouth with so many more interesting experiences than I was really uninteresting when I came to Dartmouth. But you've had so many more worldly kinds of experiences. You've done so much more volunteer work. Your perspective is so much more global than ours was, I think. And that's an amazing change. I think it's a more diverse campus than it was. I think it's a more accepting campus of that kind of diversity. I think there have been a number of changes, very much for the better here. So,
well, thank you so much, Professor Kalish. We're so happy to have had you. Next week is homecoming, and so join us as we chat with the Freshman Bonfire Chair. That will be next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Office Hours, the Dartmouth edition. And don't forget to join us this Thursday, also at 4 p.m. Eastern for the Office Hours Student Edition. Thanks so much.